Hello everyone, welcome to another video, this time Dark Mist Fortress on Master Mode. This one a little bit longer because the clear took a little bit longer. There were a couple mishaps, and the dungeon itself was, in terms of the mobbing phase, was a little bit longer because the tank didn't know the shortest path, which not every tank will know because the game doesn't tell you. But you can basically clear the entire dungeon in the second room if you find the little hidden mini-boss, because they give a lot of points. But the main purpose of this video, if you could look at the title, is to kind of talk about the skill issue and whatnot with ability score. I kind of already talked about ability score actually in the one video, so it's not so much on that, but it is more so on how it ties to skill, performance, and whatnot. This game, just like I feel like almost every MMO out there, is not good at explaining what or how to play your class in general. There are a lot of people that are playing their class probably not very well, or maybe not well, but just not correctly. And I know that that maybe sounds pretty stringent and strict in that, right? Which is like, what do you mean, like, playing it the correct way, right? What does that exactly mean? And there are a lot of guides out there, right? And really playing it correctly just means using your tools to the best of your ability, right? In the sense of, like, I guess not your ability, but its ability, right? Is synergizing your skills together that can lead to the most amount of damage output or success, right? And success in this game, as well as many other MMOs, is typically damage output. So the higher and more consistently higher you can make it, the better, right? But just because you have a higher ability score doesn't necessarily mean you actually know how to do your rotation. And so there's been issues I've seen in a party before where they were kind of accusing people of padding their ability score. Whether or not they actually were, I mean, there's definitely discussions there, but there are definitely possible accusations that people will have of people basically suggesting that, like, oh, hey, this person's like 20k, but they're doing less damage than, the rest of us or something. Or they're doing less damage even than the healer. They're doing less damage than the dissonance B performer, right? And whatnot. And obviously that really shouldn't be happening. But it really goes to show, like, that ability score isn't a great measurement of, like, how well that person's going to perform, because you really don't know. And then it's the case for Final Fantasy as well. You can have the person technically have, right now I think max item level 760, although it won't be for much longer. But you could have someone with, like, full item level 760 gear, and they just don't really know how to play their class properly, or well at all, right? That's totally possible. And really, we've seen this more, or at least I've seen this more when I've been trying to get M5 clears. I've tried to get an M5 clear for Tina, which I did get, and Goblin Nest, which I did not get, and I'll talk about that shortly. But the Tina one, we were not doing clone skip, which is just when you skip the clone mechanics, as in you just don't kill the clones. It will make her slam one-shot you, but you can just invuln it with either an ultimate skill if you have the timing right, or if you're DPS and tank. All DPS and tanks have an invuln skill. I do know that sometimes that means replacing something that maybe is important to your rotation. I think a lot of classes have the flexibility to at least swap one skill out, which is really all you need. But if you don't, you can always just try and focus on the ult timing if you have it kind of down and whatnot, right? But regardless, yeah, we were trying to do Tina M5, not clone skipping. Instead, we were trying to kill 2 out of 3 clones, and that was, I feel like, a disaster. I feel like it was unnecessary, but the person who really wanted to do it was kind of the party lead, and they were also, I believe, the one that was kind of dictating a lot about the ability score and whether people were padding their scores and whatnot and doing enough damage. But the issue is that I think the reason, like, we ended up, or they, I shouldn't say we because it was they, but they removed a Frost mage that I felt like was doing relatively fine. I didn't have the damage numbers up, so I guess I couldn't, like, really tell how bad it was. They did say they were doing less than the rest. And that, again, accused them of being padded, but, like, I felt like they were competent, right? Mechanically, they weren't really dying to any of Tina's mechanics. They were passing everything, and doing, I think, the best that they could. But we weren't clone skipping, which means that we were using our burst on clones, and we were barely meeting the check sometimes. So it's like, and a lot of it was because the party leader actually couldn't do the clone skip. They could not ult time correctly. And then when I mentioned if they could use deter shot, they said that all their skills on wild pack marksman were very important for their rotation, which could be the case for sure. I'm not going to argue that. I think falconry actually maybe has an easier time swapping skills, because I think I've heard that like falconry can like play with like 2 or 3 skills on auto or something like that. I think I've seen videos about that before for season 1. But regardless, it still basically means that we had to sacrifice a lot of our damage on Tina, which when we killed Tina, she was enraged. In fact, I think the only reason we won, not to toot my own horn, but everyone died, I think everyone died, and then because she was enraged, she did the spread AoE attack where it like targets everybody, but she was enraged, so I knew it was going to one-shot me. And I had crazy luck on the timing of my ult, I think, because I saw that my circle was first, so I think I knew that she was targeting me first. And I dodged it successfully, which meant that everyone else died, but I didn't, so it didn't immediately reset the room and allowed other people to use their candy. But man, it was like incredibly close, and it was one of those things where like I just felt like our strategy of actually killing the clones and saving our burst specifically for the clones was not great. And I think it was an oversight, and I think it was also kind of a result of, again, a little bit of a skill issue on behalf of the party member who just wasn't comfortable doing clone skipping. And again, the reason that these strategies, in a similar way to strategies for Final Fantasy in terms of like Hector guides, if you've ever looked up at any of those, typically, and I'm not saying to like glaze any of these that like they're always the best idea and whatnot, but typically the reason that people come up with these strategies is to make it easier for everyone. They're trying to make you think the least amount possible, because the more thinking you have to do typically means the less damage you're doing, because thinking while doing other things is hard. Understandably so, right? So the less we can make you think, the better you'll do damage-wise and otherwise, even for like healing and tanking and whatnot, right? So that's the idea with these strategies. So clone skipping allows you to avoid that. And even for the Goblin Nest one that we just had an issue where actually people still didn't know how to do the ball mechanic. Which kind of sucks. The tank, I think, was very inexperienced. They also were dying to the tank buster every single time. One of the melees kept walking into the tank buster, although admittedly the tank also brought it into them a few times as well. And again, it kind of just goes to show that, like, especially with master mode, there's still a lot of people that just don't know what they're doing, and it is a learning process ultimately for them. And I do think that they ultimately, again, they either have to learn by being told, or having their own ability to look up things, or they're gonna learn by experience. But sometimes when you learn by experience, people aren't always the nicest, and so you get a lot of issues like that. I feel like, and that was the case for the Goblin. And unfortunately, even though Tina M5 clear did happen, Goblin 1 did not. And we actually, I don't know. It was rough too, because the DPS were the ones that were doing the ball bounce, because the tank did not know how to do it, and the healer maybe knew how to do it but never did do it, except for one time where the boss was targeting me. And when the boss was targeting me, I went to go put my shield out to hit the ball, but then the healer walked like into my body at the same time to also reflect the ball, and literally immediately reflected it at the same time. And I think it shattered both of our shields, and we were the only two with them. And I was like, what just happened? And so it unfortunately killed us because nobody else was able to do it. And like it's literally what I mean as well, is like earlier, the tank did try to do it once, and they reflected the ball just straight into the barrier. Like they were looking at the boss, they pulled out the shield and just reflected it straight into the barrier. Which is crazy, because you'd think in hindsight, like, oh, well, the whole goal is to hit the area that doesn't have a shield. But, like, the tank didn't know that, right? And so, like, all of these are basically examples that, skill issues do exist. I got skill issued there, right? And there's a learning part to it, but the game doesn't do a great job. People try to use ability score as the higher the ability score, the greater the chance of the skill issue not being as necessary, maybe, but that isn't necessarily true either. And people just need to, take time to learn. And really, the biggest thing is just ask questions. Some people are going to be mean about it. I can't stop that. But if you ask questions, I feel like you're more likely to be able to perform well in the future. And also, try to come up with strategies that make things easier for everyone, because typically doing that is going to be a better thing for the party. So instead of trying to force people to do something that you already are seeing is not really working super well, maybe try something else. But that's kind of it in that regard. I don't really have too much more to say other than everything I already said thus far. So I will see you all in the next video. Thanks for watching.